everybody. Today's session is tips for summer cottage and camp care with Steve Bedard of Bedard Preservation and Restoration. My name is Beverly Thomas. I'm the program director at the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance. It's great to have you join us today for this virtual session. We are, for those who may not know, we're the statewide nonprofit membership-based historic preservation organization. These virtual programs are a part of our ongoing and expanding work to help provide information to people like you who are great stewards of historic buildings. Thanks to those of you who are members. I know some of you are. Others who are not, we encourage you to join to help us continue with programming like this. We also have a 7 to Save endangered properties program that we administer every year. Advocate for preservation at the state and local level and expand preservation toolbox so we can encourage more preservation investment. During this COVID time, we're all working from home, but we've started doing these virtual sessions, which have become very popular. So we plan to continue through the fall with these and maybe even beyond. Today's program is going to be very informal, roundtable type format. Steve will be doing a brief intro, and then basically I'm going to just open it up to Q&A. Before we start though, what I'd like to do, since we just have a few of you on right now, we've done some of this before we officially started, but if you can do a brief introduction, tell us what kind of cabin or cottage that you have, where it is, and maybe a question or two you would like to have Steve discuss. So let's start with Marion, please.
Yeah, I'm Marion Baker from Hillsborough. We have a cottage that was built in 1919 and with now several generations. And the, let's say, oh, it's a place that can hold 10 people, at least 10 beds, but it doesn't have electricity and running water.
That's great.
So it's
Love that.
it can only be used in the summer. There's just no way, no insulation and that kind of thing.
And you use it from approximately when to when?
Usually Memorial Day to what, Columbus Day, Discovery Day or whatever.
Yeah. And all types of family come and visit throughout the summer, right?
Yeah.
No rentals.
I've got some coming in. No
rentals.
Going to rent a place with electricity and running water.
Right. All right, Audra. Thank you, Marion.
Sure, Audra Klum. We have a cottage in the Saranac Lake, Tupper Lake area in a place called Corey's. It has 1 bedroom, kitchen, living area with a screen porch. Probably built around the 1920s with an addition in the 60s. The sills are rotting. We're working on those now. We just replaced the entry door, and yeah, we got to do redo the windows 6/1. They got to get new window treatments added up there. So yeah, it's exciting.
Sounds great. And did you say you were a new owner of this?
Yeah, we just bought it from my folks this spring. So we're just trying to do something with it rather than just having my folks own it as a, the kids stay there. So
right.
We're actually trying to make it so that it doesn't fall down the hill into the lake.
Good. So is it close to other family property?
Yeah, it's right next to my folks' cabin. They bought that in '78, and I pretty much grew up there. So this was the neighbors that he bought. My dad bought it 12 years ago, and just me and my brother and sister just stayed there with our families, but now it's starting to get maintained, maybe slightly upgraded.
Great. And Tom, what do you have?
Yes, well, I have a 1-room cabin, which was built in 1950. And this is in North Brookfield, Massachusetts, on a beautiful lake. And the interesting thing about this is that it was part of my folks' original cabin, which they tore down in the 1980s. And a neighbor who owned the land at the time, a couple down the end of the road, had tore down what was left of a cabin there that had been completely well, it was really far gone. So when my folks were tearing down their summer place, he says, "Hey, can I have some of that?" My father said, "Sure, take whatever you want." So he took the south bedroom and took it by truck down the road and set it up down there.
Wow.
And later on in 1994, when he retired, moved to Florida, he was kind enough to give me first offer on the land in the cabin. So I bought the south bedroom back.
Great. And you sent a question about additions, so I'm sure we'll be able to cover that since we have a small group today. Okay, thank you. So Steve, does that give you a few tidbits to start with? Do you want to start with one of their possible issues, or do you want to just start on the exterior and work your way in? How do you want to do this?
I don't know. It's all fun stuff.
It is all good stuff.
And it's all, the three of them are kind of different. While they share that whole issue of the lake and the cabin, but we have a cabin ourselves that was built about 1930, and it was added on as a one room, was added on to for a kitchen and a bedroom and bathroom that we bought 25 years ago maybe. And so we've put a wraparound deck on and going to screen in part of that deck as part of the porch, and all of the issues that I think we're going to talk about, we've come across as well as I'm sure you guys have, and the issue of opening up first thing every year and finding it being mildewy and musty smelling and getting the water turned on if you have water. Marion doesn't have to worry about water. Marion, do you have a one hole outhouse or two hole or three hole?
We have a two-holer.
Two-holer, okay.
And we've rigged up a hose that goes from the winter house down the hill, almost 1,000 feet.
Oh, wow.
And put it into a barrel.
Okay.
So that we can actually have running water in the kitchen.
Okay.
Fancy.
Very fancy. Very fancy.
Gravity.
And it's great. It's, great. It's from 1919, as you mentioned. You can put 10 people.
At least 10.
At least 10, yeah. That's what happens with ours. Ours does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Plus, we just bought a little house. It was the information booth from the town of Wolfboro that they didn't want anymore, which is 10 by 14, that we moved from Wolfboro and set up. So we have another room. There's 4 more people can sleep in that. Because it's always seen when you have a camp, when it's really hot, it seems like they come out of the woodwork. Although you don't have much luck when it comes time to put the docket in the spring and take it out in the fall. I'll tell you that helps.
They disappear, don't they?
They they scatter. They scatter. You can't find them.
Luckily, I have 2 college students they're at Harvard right now.
Okay.
To come up at the beginning and the end to help open and close, which is
That's nice.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Wonderful.
But I'm curious to Audra's situation. You've got some. You bought this from your parents. How long did they own it before?
They had it for 12 years.
Okay. And you said it's a one bedroom, kitchen, living room.
Yeah,
1920. You got a rotted front sill.
Yeah, the front sill's rotted because it's in a slope and it wasn't maintained, cleaned around the bedroom side. So the land sloughed in and became damp and never got cleaned out. And so I was cleaning it out last year. I said, Dad, this is an issue we're going to have to tackle. So he and I are working on that this year.
Oh, good. That's fun. That is fun.
Yeah, it's fun. We tore off the sides and then we saw what we needed. Then we're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. We've got all our pressure treated lumber. We're going to do this. And then let's take a couple of deck boards off of the entry to get into the living room. And oh yeah, that's attached wrong to the house. So we've got to redo that. So instead of starting on the sill, we started on redoing, the entry and then had to do some sill work there and then found the door needed to be replaced. So yeah, it's fun.
I think you always have to have an appreciation for camps being built. Usually being worked on. Usually there's beer involved. What is being worked on, and there's no levels. No levels are usually allowed.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting what what you can wind up with. One of the big issues that I think is really important, though, is the foundations. And a lot of times they're built on piers. And it's so important that those piers are built properly. I've seen people build piers with 50-gallon drums as a pier, but it doesn't matter how the size of the pier because it was sitting right on the ground. So, of course, it just moved all over the place and had to be replaced. So those piers hopefully are down far enough so that they won't get into the frost. Frost won't get into them and cause things to go up and down. If they're not, they really should be looked at as how to deal with that issue. From there, everything else is up, up from the foundation, like all old buildings. So everything goes from that up. And, we all have the painting of the cottage we're going to paint the trim. My favorite is cedar shakes that just weather naturally. So you try to eliminate some of that work that you're doing. Tom, you mentioned a possible addition. How big is this one-room cabin?
It is 12 feet by 16 feet.
Oh, it's a really small one-room cabin.
It was the south bedroom, and that was it, or
That was
bedroom in the hallway. And that was the only part of the cabin that was salvaged. The rest of it was bulldozed down, which a little funny aside is when they bulldozed down the rest of the cabin, all manner of animals came out from every corner.
Oh, yeah.
Mice, squirrels, bats.
Oh, yeah.
And they discovered that the cabin had been completely insulated over the years with stuffing from mattresses and everything else.
Yep. Anything they can get a hold of.
Right.
People talk about putting out Irish Spring to keep the mice out. We have bars of Irish Spring that just been eaten down to nothing.
Really?
So, and that's another thing we can try to get into as to how to deal with that.
Right.
One thing that does help is peppermint oil.
Peppermint oil.
I put that in every of the bureaus and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We tried that. We tried that one year, but I think we put too much peppermint oil because we go in ourselves and we're in big. We felt kind of odd. So I think we need to cut back on the peppermint oil. But most of the time, if you can try, if you go room by room, or if you only have one room, it's really easy. You can find where they're getting in, and then you can block those areas up with some material. We typically use a 1/2-inch hardware cloth if you can't see it. I like this. I mean, you've seen the typical metal lids off of tin cans that were used, which are kind of fun.
Yeah.
To see. But you just got to try to block up all those holes as best you can. So Tom, how big of an addition are you thinking about putting on the 12 by 16 building?
Well, there's the question is, do I want to put on the addition or do I want to build up? It's not really high enough. I mean, you could put a half floor in there for a loft for bed space, but boy, you wouldn't have much headroom, and right. Basically your floor joist would come just about my height, 5'10", if you did that. But and then is it worth the expense to have basically the roof just jacked up and do another at least half story?
Generally speaking, not, especially when it's so small. I would tend to build out rather than up.
Okay.
What are you looking for to gain for space?
Well, it'd be nice to have at least twice the space, at least half, or 1.5 times the space, maybe. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe 16 by 22, maybe something like that.
Okay, so you could almost make your current building look like an addition to another building.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be on a different level though, which makes another, puts another monkey wrench in it because this thing was put into the hillside and built on stone piers, which there again, as you mentioned, having a proper footing, and I'm sure they're not proper footings. The stone piers are, then were concreted some, but that they're sitting on top of the ground. So ideally, if we're going to leave the cabin in that position, I should really put, dig down, do 4-foot concrete piers, and then, something on top of that.
Right. Right.
I forgot what you call them now. They have the sonotubes. You
Right.
pour cement in and get it down at least 4 feet.
Right.
The original cabin was, we found out, was just built with those old-fashioned nail kegs filled with
Yep.
concrete.
I've seen that before. I've
Yep.
actually seen that before. It's amazing what, and they were, they were camps. They weren't meant to be used during the winter. Sometimes for hunting. Sometimes you'll see them where people use them for hunting.
Yeah.
But basically, they're not meant to be used for the winter, and so they weren't really worried about things coming and going.
Right.
Marion, what type of foundation do you have, if any, on your camp?
Well, what really held it up was the fireplace.
Oh,
Okay.
Fireplace.
I understand.
That's held it up over the years. I've actually had people fighting over what to do in terms of, how to fix it, because I had one person who was really into pouring concrete pillars and did a whole bunch of little pillars, and more than you need, just quantities of pillars. And then somebody else came in, but he managed to make it so that the front of the porch drained into the house.
Oh,
That can't be. That's not a good thing.
No. So I got a different carpenter and stuff. And he said, no, what you need to do is really connect all those pillars.
froze up again.
Yeah, you froze up.
The other day and said, oh, but he knocked out a couple of my pillars.
Oh boy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I want to be connecting all the pillars together. I don't see that as being a good thing.
Oh,
Because it just, I mean, if you've got things that are unstable, you're connecting unstable things to other unstable things. If it was all really good below frost, maybe, I don't know what the advantage to be connecting them would be,
mhm.
but if they're unstable, I would not connect them together. Suggest you not do that.
Okay.
But they're camps. You really can't go wrong. You really
Right.
can't go wrong anyway. It's a camp.
And
You
it
know?
survived 100 years, and it didn't even have a proper, it was somebody who built chicken coops. They didn't have a proper,
Sill?
all the 2x4s and all that kind of stuff around.
Right.
I mean, we discovered, we had one bookcase that had an encyclopedia, and we, all the volumes of an encyclopedia, and suddenly realized nothing was holding it up, sagging. So, that's when we went in to start fixing pillars and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's much solid now. It has an I-beam across, that helps.
How about you, Audra? What do you have for a foundation?
It has, I don't know what you call them, tie rods, I think it is, going all the way to make sure, the snow doesn't, destroy it.
Yeah, we got the piers with concrete or rock footings under each one.
Mm-hmm. And they seem to be in pretty good condition.
Yeah, they were deeper than we expected when we were excavating around the southwest corner. We poked down in, and we figured they were just going to be, maybe a foot down under the ground, but they extended quite a bit deeper than we expected. So that was a bonus.
That's good.
Yep.
And don't forget, you can bank some sand and stuff around there too, just to increase the frost protection.
Right. Yep.
Yep, you can do that.
so Steve, if Tom is going to do an addition, do you recommend putting that new addition on footings or some type of a foundation with frost walls? A new,
Yes. Yes.
Yes. That makes sense. Even if it's up on piers, at least have it go down 4 feet to the frost line, I would think.
Right. I guess do you see Tom potential of winterizing that at any point?
Yeah, matter of fact, that's what I had hoped to do this summer, but with this coronavirus thing, that kind of nixed those plans. But I did want to put in insulation. Right now, it's just the 2x4 walls and
Right.
vertical sheathing on the outside, and then the clapboards consist of, I've forgotten what they're called, but they're the clapboards that the bark has not been cut off the edges.
Yeah. Waney edge. That's the Wayne. They call that Wayne.
Wayne Edge?
Wayne Edge, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
W-A-N-E.
Or the Wayne Edge or Live Edge.
Live
No.
Edge, yeah, that's what I've heard, Live Edge, yeah.
What about your new addition? Would you want to make that winterized?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I would love to be able to stay there, any time of the year.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in that scenario, you do want to do a full foundation, or at least a frost wall foundation.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I would suggest you do. Because it's really difficult to insulate the floor and have it not be a moisture problem and a condensation problem. And so
I was more worried about the rodent problem. If you have, insulation underneath, that would be just an invitation for all kinds of animals to pull all that out.
Well, there again, if you can get some, I don't know if you're familiar with half-inch hardware cloth that comes in rolls.
Yes,
It's 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch squares.
yes,
You can nail that to the bottom of your floor joists.
yeah,
And the mice, nothing can get in there. No mice can get in there. Chicken
Right.
wire doesn't work because the chipmunks and the mice will get through the chicken wire.
right.
But you can put that hardware cloth up, and that'll keep them out. So you can just go ahead and insulate those bays with non-faced insulation. You don't want to have a vapor barrier in there, especially a lot of
Or
times.
you can have it faced upwards.
You can have it face upwards, but it really should be continuous without any breaks. It's hard to get that done. You could do that if you were to insulate before you put your floor down.
Yeah, I've actually, years ago, I insulated houses for people just, for extra money and
Mhm.
found out about the vapor barriers and so forth.
Right.
And I would string piano wire in a zigzag pattern between the joists to hold up the insulation with the vapor barrier facing towards the floor
Mm-hmm.
or towards the ceiling. If it
Yeah. That's the biggest mistake that you see in cabins and houses too, where they'll insulate the basement floor and they'll just have the paper vapor barrier hanging down. They'll just staple it that
On the
way.
bottom,
That's always a problem. Yeah.
yeah, somebody did that on the last regular house I had,
Yeah. So that's not unusual.
facing
So-
the wrong way.
In that scenario, I would recommend you not really, if you are going to put an addition on,
Yep.
and it's going to be with a stable foundation, I would not bother repairing anything on the cabin right now, foundation-wise or pier-wise. Get that new stable foundation in place with the new building, and then tie your existing cabin to that new stabilized structure.
Maybe move the cabin over to a new foundation.
You could, but you could just also leave the cabin part as is and open underneath, and just
Yeah.
plan on living in the 16 by 20 or 20 by 30 building you're talking about for the winter.
Well,
So all kinds of options. You have all kinds of options.
yeah. We did, I did get electricity to the place, which is wonderful. But I don't have running water there yet, so
But
yeah.
you're gonna have to talk to Marion about the running water thing.
Yeah,
And you've got electricity, so maybe it's a trade-off there, you know?
put some wires over there if it weren't so far away.
I know. But camp living we have a campus actually, because we had farm animals at the time. Our camp is 1.3 miles away from our house, so we don't have to go very far.
Nice.
But it's such a completely different difference between being home and being at camp. It really is. And
Absolutely.
it's hard to put a defined terms on it, but it just does feel completely different.
Steve, Marion said something really nice about her cabin before you got on, her camp, about not wanting to modernize it. Can you just say that once again, Marion, so Steve can?
Yeah, we had the outhouse needed to do something about it, need to repair, replace, or whatever. And so we talked to the next generation, assuming they probably would say, let's, start getting water and getting a proper toilet and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And interesting enough, they all said no, because this is our vacation time. We get away from the usual. So then when we go back to our homes, we'll appreciate it more.
Good.
So
Good.
we
That's great.
I think that's great.
a newer one.
Good
Mhm.
for them.
What do you have for a bathroom, Audra?
Oh, we have a regular toilet and sink, and then the shower's in the basement.
Oh, you've got water.
We do. We pump water up down from it used to come from the lake, but now we drove a point in the ground about 25 feet up from the lake edge, so it's sand filtered, so it's pretty good.
Can you still get the points? I know they used to have those back in the 1920s and 30s.
Oh yeah, we get up in the Adirondacks. That's pretty common up there. The driving the points, because it's we live on an esker. The camp's on an esker, so there's tons of sand, and lots of camps are like that. So it's pretty common for people to have driven points up there. Whereas here in the Granite State, it's not worth your time.
Can you
Yeah,
explain what that is? I'm not familiar.
Sure, it's a 4-foot tube, steel usually, with a mesh. It's created that, they develop it that way with a mesh filter through it. So it's a pipe with a point at the end. And then what we do is we auger down with a 4-inch auger. My father's got one that it has an extending handle, so you can extend it about 15, 20 feet. So you keep digging down with your auger and getting the sand out of the way. And then when you're as far as you can go, you drive your point down with your metal piping, and you just use a fence post driver to get it down into the ground, and then connect it to your the pump house, and send it up the hill.
Wow.
Yeah,
And you can do that anywhere? I mean, is there any regulation as to where you can do that?
possible that there are. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm purposely not going to ask.
Right.
I
Okay.
have not asked that question. Please don't
Just
ask me.
wondering. Okay.
No, don't ask the question. Just do it.
It's not like I'm doing something dangerous like putting in a septic system. I'm
Right.
just adding drinking water.
Yeah.
How close is everybody to the water?
I'm at probably about 75 feet to the water. The only problem is the lot, it's 200-foot frontage on the lake, but it's only 100-foot back.
Oh, sure.
And in Massachusetts, they said you're not allowed to ever build there anymore because you can't put a septic because you don't have 100 feet,
Mm-hmm.
less than 100 feet to the water. This is how I got the property so cheap. The fellow that bought the cabin down the end of the road, he tore it down first.
Oh,
And then
okay.
they said he could never build again on that property
Oh, wow.
because and my folks did it the right way. They kept the cabin up. They put in their huge modern new place,
Mm-hmm.
and it was grandfathered in, and then they took the rest of the cabin down.
Mhm.
So anyway, the fellow that had the land now that he could not build on, he did move my folks' south bedroom down there as a so-called bathhouse.
Okay.
But it's been many years now, and I've had electricity for 20 years, and I think there's the people that prevented me from, anyone from ever building there are long gone, and for all they know, there's always been a cabin on that property. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Audra?
I think we're about 150-ish feet back from the lake,
Oh.
and quite a bit higher than the lake. So we're well out of the flood zone, which is nice.
All right. How about you, Marion?
We're about 156 feet, I think it is, or 160 feet.
Oh, wow. So all of us we're
We have
about 100 feet.
More than 300 feet of shore.
Yeah, we're about probably 75 to 100 feet away. I was wondering if we had anybody who was right on the water, like some of the places are.
Actually, one of the people that registered has a house right on Lake Wentworth, and I'm sorry he's not here because he had some questions about repairs and, oh well.
Yeah.
So we don't have those issues with this group.
That's good. That's good. As you know, well, here in New Hampshire, we have when we wanted to put the deck on, even though it was a deck, it was considered impervious. So we had to go get special dispensation from the state to do the porch. And we could only go out 12 feet. You couldn't go any further than that to do deck, not porch. Go out
Right.
12 feet.
You can be lucky you're not like I had a neighbor who took a 1940s cottage, and he literally doubled the size of it He lifted the whole thing up, put a complete basement under it, and then added an addition double the size of it.
Oh, wow.
Claiming, oh, this is a 1940s. It actually was 2000.
Yeah.
To go to the taxes because they were trying to charge me, for the same, our old place, the same as his, which is basically brand new, 3 times the size.
And he's got running water, I take it too. I mean, he's got electricity in the bathroom too, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He
So it's
had
all
that.
about the square footage.
And then he built another place. He called it as a shed for snowmobiles, and it had, what was it, $6,000 worth of glass in it,
Jeez.
because it's basically a winter house.
Wow.
It just has a barn door on the one side.
You know, I have thought about that. I'm thinking you could, build one of these garages, and then the back side of the garage, you have all your windows facing the lake, and then, I don't know, what are you going to do?
Right.
It's interesting what.
One way they cut the taxes is basically building a garage
Yep.
and claim it's just a garage. When in
Finish the
fact it's
garage,
not.
right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
well, you've got in New Hampshire, you've got 240 municipalities and townships and whatnot, and every single one of them has a different rule and regulation pertaining to zoning and building permits and all those kind of things. So,
And Steve, was it shoreline protection stuff that you had to deal with your?
Yeah. Yep.
Porch?
It was shoreline protection.
Okay.
And then you get into the whole thing about, you get into too, if you want to cut some trees or whatnot, you get into the point system about the size, the diameter of the tree. You can only take out so much between the water and 75 feet in or 100 feet in. So, yeah. And the regulations keep changing. So you gotta really go on the state website and look.
What we do, instead of cutting down the trees, we cut the tops off, so we get a whole view of the whole lake.
Yep. Yeah,
Leave
nothing
the
wrong
whole
with that.
bottom with their long branches hanging down over the water, and all the fish come to our area, and everybody wants to come fishing at our place.
Yeah, our place is because it does set back, and we do have trees in front of it and to the side. You really can't see it from the water very much. Our next door neighbor, though, God bless them, and they're wonderful people. Their place was about 20 feet off the water, and they cleared everything in front of their place and around their place.
Oh, I hate that.
So you can see it. It's only one of 3 places you can see on Manning Lake, which is about 206 acres from afar, because there it is. It's just out there. And they're really nice people. They just didn't know, one of those things. So
Yeah.
too bad.
Well, Steve, relating to that, how about moss growth on roofs?
Moss growth on roofs. There is a product, and I can't think of the name of it, that will take the moss off your roof and not disturb your shingles. And it's something that we should get on the website, Beverly, so that people will know that, because that pertains to anybody who has a roof system that's covered with shade,
Yep.
and things like that. One side of my roof gets moss on it, and I haven't used it on it. I've been kind of picking it off once in a while. When I see it, I should probably get some of that myself and do it.
Is it friendly to the environment and
Yes.
surrounding vegetation,
Yes,
gardens? Yeah.
it is. I just can't think of the name of it.
Okay, we'll research that and try to get that. Does anybody have that issue? Because of the
I've got a cure for that. Apparently, you use either copper or zinc
Right.
right along the top of the roof.
Yep.
And if you've ever seen people that have the copper weather vanes on their garage, the copper clad the little roof, anything below that, no moss grows.
The same thing with lead flashing. Lead flashing on a
Right.
chimney will do the same thing. But yeah.
Well, you can't use lead, I guess, but for
Well, you can use it around your chimney, but you shouldn't use it on your ridge cap now. And what happens with the lead?
ridge cap, yeah.
What happened to the lead these days? We've had squirrels chewing on lead. As they
We
say,
have too.
they say it's sweet. I don't think that the squirrels last very long when they do that, but
Well, it does explain some of their behavior.
Maybe.
I mean, we went through that. We went through the rodent apocalypse there a year ago.
Right.
I'm glad it seemed like we don't have that, yet. So,
I
But-
wanted to let people know the other option is for, like you say, we don't have running water or a septic allowed, but we do have electricity. So we got something called an incentilet, which
oh, I
is
remember those.
Yep.
So if
Yep.
somebody needs an extra bathroom and adds on to their summer place that way, that's an option.
How did you find it to be okay to run and all that? No problems with it?
I just did a test recently. It was actually my mother-in-law's never used it at her place, and I borrow it, which is nice. I can it's easily transportable. Put it in the back of your station wagon and bring it, and it's not too heavy for me to lift at this point. And you have to have a vent that you plug it into, and you have to have 240 volts. Or
What's your
220, rather.
What's your mother-in-law doing in the meantime if you've got her toilet?
They have their one regular toilet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
She just wanted an extra. But
Okay.
her sister had owned that place. And when she saw the meter spinning around outside when the toilet's flushing, she says, no way, I'm not going to use this thing. But
Yeah.
it turns out, yes, your meter will spin around, especially if you have other stuff on the line. But it only works out to, I think last time I spent a few days there, it was like, it was less than $2 to flush it,
Oh, that's reasonable.
for the couple of days. So yeah, it's probably works out to about kilowatt hours, probably about 75 cents a flush.
Okay. Okay. What else do we have on our list, Beverly?
Let's see, I wrote some things down. How about just relating to what Audra was saying, site drainage type issues?
That's difficult. And let me explain why. If you are in the shoreline protection area, you cannot alter the ground at all without going to DES and getting permission to do that. We have and I can tell you about my place. Our place had a well going down the slope towards the water, a dug well that we abandoned, and they had actually, before we bought it, put in an artesian well. But there's a high water table between there and the water, so that area is always wet and damp and mushy to walk on, all those kind of things. So we've talked about trying to alleviate that problem by putting a mat in. There's an environmentally appropriate mat that you can put into that, and then you actually build on top of the mat. It drains underneath it and all that. But it gets very pricey. The mat itself is like $2,000 or $3,000 just to do an area, maybe 50 by 60. And then you got all the other pieces that have to be involved with the material that you're going to put on top of that. And it's the process with DES to go through. So it's always hard to dealing with drainage around your cottage if you're close to the water. Now, most of us are a little bit further away from the water. So we've done some things that are further away in the water to get the water to run away from those areas and go basically towards our neighbors either side. And I don't know how that works for you guys. Audra, what do you do about, you mentioned the drainage problem you had.
Yeah, once we dug it all out at the corner, we had replaced the basement room, so that the basement room is just a walk-in room that holds the water heater and the electrical panel, and then there's a shower part in there. That had all rotted away. When we were taking that apart, we realized that they had just put a piece of plywood up there, not even pressure treated plywood, and painted it so it looked pretty. And then when we pulled that away, there was nothing back there but rotted earth and wood. So yeah, that got all rebuilt 2 years ago. And then we realized that the water coming off the roof was directed under the house or under the cabin and directed right at the back of the bathroom. So we had to clean that side, where the eave drains. And then I ended up putting up a gutter because I know gutters in the winter aren't good in the Adirondacks, but that has helped. We've seen significant improvement from that. It doesn't get nearly as wet in the basement. So that was a big improvement. And then once we're done with the sill repair, I think what we're going to do is dig it down a bit more, maybe put in some fabric and then some stone to collect the water and direct it where we want it to go rather than letting it free flow under the building.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yep.
I think that's a reasonable approach. How about you, Tom or Marion?
I'm going to put in a gutter to the door sill is rotted out, and that's from splashback from the not having an adequate gutter there over the deck or the porch, the little porch entryway. So gutter can be a good thing. You do want to clean it out every fall at least. So
And spring, when you get there.
Yep,
yeah,
spring when you get there,
spring
fall.
preferably.
Marion, you get someone who does that for you up there?
Yeah, and we ended up making like a little gutter thing to go around the house so it wouldn't just rot out the one side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
At ground level?
A harder time trying to get rid of a porcupine.
Oh,
We've tried all kinds of catch 'em traps and you name it, and it likes to stay there in the winter underneath the cottage.
Yep. Yep.
does anybody have any tricks for porcupines? I don't.
We caught 15 last year on our, not at the, actually we caught one, I have to go back. We did catch one in the basement. Our cottage was winterized years ago, and one crawled up in, he chewed a hole through the outside door and crawled up in on top of the ductwork. And thought that was the greatest place to live. The furnace would kick on. We had some people staying there, and he loved that. He thought that was wonderful. So I shoot him out. We actually catch them by chasing them down, and we created this round out of wire fencing with a top on it, and it's got a little hatch that lifts up on the side. You just chase the porcupine down and put it over him, and then you put a haverhat trap up against it. And then you open the lid and he goes in the haverhat trap. Sometimes people do it with a trash can, a plastic trash can, put it over them, and then slide the lid up underneath a little bit at a time, and flip it over and transport them that way. But you got to move them about 5 miles away, or otherwise they'll be back.
Oh yeah.
5 miles, yeah.
Squirrels are even worse that way.
Yeah, squirrels about 5 too. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Mice we move. We actually still we move. We don't kill anything, so we move mice about a mile away. Chipmunks about 2 miles, and all that. So yeah,
This is a year of chipmunks.
there are a lot of chipmunks. I would agree.
I haven't seen many squirrels. I've seen chipmunks.
Yeah,
everywhere.
there are a lot of chipmunks around. How are the ticks this year, where you are?
Pretty
Good or not too bad?
I'm sure you have to watch out for them. This has been the first year, instead of raking up around the place myself, I hired somebody to do it. I've had to I've been a couple of times had Lyme disease bites, and I've had to, take the medication for that. So
Right.
it's very, very worrisome. So you got to really be careful.
Yeah, they don't seem to be as bad at the farm, and we haven't had too many problems at the lake this year either. But they are out there, and we just have to watch them and get them every day and get them off of us as fast as we can, and hope for the best.
Yeah. Steve, let's talk about, Marion had talked a little bit about this, fireplaces and chimneys and best practices on caps and things like that.
So you have a fireplace you use all the time, Marion?
We have a fireplace, that was built way back then. I had the tax inspector come along, and they were going to charge us extra because it was made out of stone. And I said, well, what is charged less? They said concrete. I said, well, concrete didn't exist back in 1919.
Good for you.
They used whatever they had. And then they're also going to charge me for I end up putting a stove inside with a lining up through the chimney. And the person who was doing that discovered that we wondered why it all has been smoky, because the chimney went up, and then just before the top, it went back out. So the whole draft did not work properly.
Okay.
By putting a lining
Mhm.
That got rid of that entirely.
So you have a wood stove and a fireplace, or just a wood stove?
No, we now just have a wood stove. It used to
Okay.
be a fireplace.
Okay.
But I end up getting a stove that you can watch the fire. So it's
Okay,
like
yep.
sitting there.
That's nice.
However, the stove was one of those ones from Vermont made with the soapstone.
Yes.
Yes, Vermont
Expensive,
castings.
but I got it from somebody who, it was a divorce case where the wife didn't like the stove and
Okay.
told the husband get rid of it out of the house. And it was so heavy he got it as far as the front door and dumped it.
Oh,
And it
wow.
sat there for a year and got rusty. And so when he found out I was interested in it, he gave it to me for the price of 2 chocolate chip cookies. He knew I made very good ones.
That's a good deal.
And brought it over to me.
Wow.
And I just had to remove all that rust. And of course, then the tax inspector came by and said, "Oh, you've got a very fancy, stove. We'll charge you another $1,000 for that." I said,
No, they can't
Oh,
be doing
no.
that.
"Didn't cost that much."
They can't be doing that.
Was that in New Hampshire?
Recycled.
Yeah, Hillsborough.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Huh.
Is it true that you guys have a view tax now in New Hampshire?
We do have a view tax. We do.
Wow. Wow.
And that brings the interesting question of, when do they determine you have a view tax? For instance,
Right.
I don't have a great view right now while the leaves are on the trees, but when the leaves go, I have wonderful view. So when do they do the tax? Is it based upon the good view, or with the shade, with the leaves?
That is such a subjective tax. I'm glad
Right.
Massachusetts doesn't have that.
Yeah, you guys got plenty of other stuff to make up for it.
I lived in New Hampshire, and I found that moving back to Massachusetts was really no difference in price, and you get a lot more for your money.
Yeah, we just did exactly the opposite. We were from
Yeah.
Massachusetts originally and moved up here, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, many moons ago.
Yep.
How about you, Audra? Do you have a stove or a fireplace, or?
We have a wood stove. It recently got replaced. My brother had one that he didn't like the way it functioned, and the one that we had it didn't stay warm very well, so we put that one outside and we use it to have outdoor stove with,
Nice.
fires. And then we have the one that works better and holds the heat better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's fun.
Yeah.
So is everybody remembering to clean their stoves at the end of the season? I hope.
Well,
Sure.
sure.
Haven't used mine too much, but I do have a Franklin stove. So,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's handy. That's handy to have. We have a fireplace that we don't use very much anymore. We use it a little bit in the fall, but we don't use it that often.
Okay, how about porches and decks? Maintaining porches and decks. Let's start with screen porches, I guess. Does anybody have a screen porch?
Yeah, we do.
Do you have problems with maintaining your screen, animals going through?
No, it's got a wire screen because it's older. And the only things that go through it are tree branches when
Yeah.
they fall. And then the internet didn't go through it very well because it was being sent over from my parents' cabin. But now we fixed that. So now we have internet.
Good.
wow.
Yeah. Because, when you go on vacation, you got to be able to work too.
You
Yeah,
need to go to Marion's house, and then you can't work.
Go to Marion's house, and yeah.
I wouldn't be able to go very often then.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have internet until this year. We had a couple that were living in New York. They were from. One lived in Amsterdam. The wife was from England. They had a baby, brand new baby, and then they were stuck in New York in March with a brand new baby.
Oh, dear.
So they were so worried about staying in New York if they had to go to the hospital with a baby. So they came here, and we decided to get internet. So so that she could work. And so we kind of kept it. We probably will keep it because our son-in-law uses it when they come up up here for vacation for 3 or 4 weeks, they'll stay here, and he has to work part-time, so at least he has that connection. Before he had to come up to the farm here and then set up, but it's not as convenient. So, well, we like to have no electricity and internet. We've got to have both of those. So,
Well, we can't even use cell phones. We don't get reception.
yeah.
We
Wow.
got lost up in our area.
Yeah, I can't get reception either with my T-Mobile, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No phone.
So
Yeah.
no, so you're really cut off.
Yeah, no phone, no internet. Maybe I'll get internet with Elon Musk's Skynet. Will be up and running pretty soon. So
Yep. We don't know. We just don't know.
possibility.
So Tom, where is your cabin?
North Brookfield.
North Brookfield.
Yep, it's between Worcester and Springfield approximately.
Okay, okay.
And
They're
the
quiet.
lake is really wonderful. It's not a big lake. It's about 1.5 miles long, but only about half a mile wide at its widest point.
Hmm.
But the unusual thing about it is they don't allow motorboats on there,
Nice.
Nice.
which is
Yeah.
wonderful.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful.
Yeah, they used to when I was a kid. They allowed up to 5.5 horsepower, and then 40 years ago or whatever, they said, nope, that's it. No more gas-powered boats. You can have electric, and you can have your kayaks and sailboats, but no,
Yeah.
no gas-powered motors anymore.
Yeah. I think you have to go around and get so many percentage of the people who have access to the lake to agree to that, is what I remember. And then you have to pass the ordinance to do that.
Well, it was an interesting thing because somebody bought property on the lake and he decided he wasn't going to do those rules. He didn't want those rules. Had his motorboats and ATVs on the ice in the winter and everything, and he got arrested and he took everybody to court, everybody else around the lake. And it was the rules are run by the Brooks Pond Association, which is a nonprofit. And it was quite a court battle. Because if he had, if this fellow that was causing the trouble had it classified as a great pond, I think, as they say in Massachusetts, basically, yeah, you can put anything you want on there, you know.
Okay.
But what
Huh.
happened is because the lake was built up by damming up a river, a lot of these wealthy landowners actually show that their property lines went under the water.
Okay.
Yes, they own the land under the water. They own the lake, and we won the suit.
Hmm.
So that guy can no longer do his motors on the lake.
So are all the landowners on the lake a part of the association?
No, they don't have to be. It's usually there's some pretty wealthy people there. People like us, middle class, are usually, we may chip in to have the milfoil and invasives
Yeah.
taken care of on the lake. But no, it's not a requirement that you be part of the Brooks Pond Association. But if you can afford it, that to help out, that's much appreciated.
But it was the association that made that rule?
Yes, the association
Interesting.
decided no motors on the lake.
Well,
And so they fortunately had some people with quite a bit of money and lots of power to enforce this.
Concerning porches, I wanted to mention one quick thing.
Wait, hold on, Steve. Marion, I think, had a question
I'm
or a
sorry.
statement.
I just had a question because I understood that we have problems with boats right now with our new
Okay.
owners, and who are not only driving the boats but driving extremely fast and very close to the shore. So people are worried about their grandchildren and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
We have learned that if you have at least 5 full-time residents who can, make a petition to the government, you can prevent any motorized ones on your pond.
Really?
Huh.
That's from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in the process of looking into that, of whether we do it just specifically for our pond or whether we say any pond that's less than 100 acres, because we're like 98. You
Yeah,
can't.
acreage is a big part of that. And I know the acreage was a part of the lawsuit
Yeah.
problems too. But yeah, things are different from state to state for sure.
Interesting. That's a whole nother session, right?
Hold on a second. So porches, if anybody's thinking about doing a porch, because we're gonna be doing a porch, not this fall, but hopefully next spring, fall. And we're gonna do like they do up in the Saranac Lakes and things like that, and we're gonna do big overhangs on the porch, so you can actually be out there when it's raining. You can be in your
Yes.
porch, but not get wet. So that's gonna create so much more space and availability for people to wander around, because the 20 by 30 building is can get pretty congested very easily on a rainy day. So
Yeah.
a 12 by 18 porch would make all the difference.
Well, we have a porch around three sides of the building.
Do you?
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
Nice.
So we
Yeah,
can-
it's, the old cabin did have a porch with a large overhang, and you could eat out there, but if it was a good rain coming down from the, down the lake there, you're going to get pretty damp.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to wind up with a 4-foot overhang all the way around the new porch. So
Wow.
hopefully that'll take care of it.
Audrey, do you have an overhang? A big one?
We have a porch, so our building's kind of L-shaped, where the bedroom and the kitchen are on one side, and then the living room is just a bump out of the L. So then the porch, the screen porch, is the remainder of the building, and there's no outdoor access from the porch. So you have to go through the living room to get outside.
I
So that room is where pretty much all the eating and the hanging out is, unless it's cold and then you're in the living room. But yeah, it doesn't really have, I mean, it's got enough of an overhang, it can rain fine and it doesn't come in.
Good.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that extra space.
You have to have that. You really do. You really do. Because you get, like I said, and usually in good weather, on a hot day, it's amazing how many people come out of the woodwork, So,
However, we found with the tax issue, they started, because we stored a couple pieces of old lumber underneath the porch, they counted that as a shed.
Oh, boy.
Hillsborough doesn't, yeah.
That's a tough town to live in, isn't it?
Right, the taxes are pretty incredible.
Wow.
That's amazing.
All right, so nobody rents their cottage, is that true?
No.
Okay. So no
We used to do a winter rental years ago. But we found it was like
6 o'clock.
Like any rental, you get good tenants and bad tenants, and we had a really bad one, so we stopped doing that.
Yeah.
I think if I do get it winterized and get water out there, rather, that's the main thing, then maybe would rent, but we'll see. You get liability issues when you do that, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, believe it or not, it's already 6 o'clock. Are there any last minute questions, topics you want to cover? No. All right, well, I want to thank Steve very much. Always a pleasure to have you, Steve, and have these nice discussions about relating to our historic properties. And I thank the three of you for taking care of your cottages and camps.
It sounds great. It sounds like all the stuff that you guys are talking about doing is good stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I will send a follow-up email with a short survey just to help us with future programming. And also I'll include maybe a couple follow-up things that we talked about here. And I have a thing about moss on your roofs and a few of the other things that if Steve can remember, whatever that was you were trying to remember.
I got a note. I made a note up to myself here. Note to self.
So I'll include that in the follow-up email.
Okay.
And then I'd also like you to encourage you to visit the Old House page of our website, nhpreservation.org. There's an Old House page with all kinds of tips and Old House information. And then a couple upcoming programs, if you haven't already seen them on our events page of the website. The New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources is partnering with the Preservation Alliance on August 4th to have an input session for the upcoming New Hampshire Preservation Plan that they're putting together. It's the 2021 to 2025 statewide preservation plan, and they're looking for participants. So they invite you to join that one. And then also another one that might be of interest to you is a program we're doing, and we've done quite a few of these over the years, called Passing It On, talking about generational transfer of cabins and cottages and real estate. And that is August 6th at noontime with the Executive Director of the Preservation Alliance and attorney Alexandra Breed from McLean and Middleton. So that's, I encourage you all to join in on that one. A really good discussion about how to keep the legacy of these camps ongoing from generation to generation. All right, so, and then there's other events on our website, so I encourage you to look through the website. And thank you all for joining, and stay well and enjoy your camps and stay connected to us. And if you have any questions, oh, and Steve's contact information is on our online directory of preservation products and services, but I'll also put it in the follow-up email in case you have any additional questions you want to send on to Steve. Okay, so thank you very much, Steve, and thanks all of you for joining.
Yeah, nice meeting everybody.
Thank you.
Have nice meeting you.